Hi, I thought I'd just go through some of the techniques that I've used to make this particular quilt behind me here. This is called In the Poppy Forest, and there is someone in that poppy forest. So what I've done is I've done some 2.5-inch strips for my backing or background, and then I have stitched them all together. They're just varying lengths and colours, and I've stitched them all together, and then I have basted those together with the backing and batting, and I'm making a small version, just a little sample, just to show you the techniques. And so I've basted them together with the backing. I've got a batting in between, and then I've just done some free motion quilting. This is all before we do any of the applique. So I thought I'd just quickly go through what I've done. As you can see, I've got to that stage. I'm now going to free motion. I've started already. I've done some wiggly lines here. Some machines do have a setting for a sort of a wiggly line, which would be absolutely fine. I'm doing mine free motion. So I've set the machine up, I've dropped the feed teeth, I've got a free motion foot on, I've got my cotton thread in there, and really all I'm doing is just wiggling this as it goes through. It's not a very big action, so it might not look like I'm doing a lot, but I am. So I can start just off the quilt or right at the edge there, because that's going to be covered by a binding. And I'm just going to go, so I'm just wiggling side to side. And they get a little bit irregular sometimes, but for me that's part of the charm. And that's the same, even though it's on a larger quilt, it's the same. You might need to roll up part of your quilt to fit it into your machine, but really that's the same technique that I've used everywhere. And so I've just come inside each of the seam lines. And so I'll continue on, I'll get the rest of my quilting done, and then I'll come and show you how I put the applique. So I'm using fused applique, so I've actually already cut my shapes out, they're just sitting over here. So I'll come and show you how I position those with the stem for the poppies and things like that. So I've gone ahead, I've finished the quilting on my piece, which would be the same if it was a larger quilt. I would have done all the quilting first. And then I'm going to position my poppy. Now I've got the fusible web on the back of the poppies, still with the paper, that's still intact because I'm not ironing the poppy itself on just yet. I want to do the stem. So if you can see on here, these stems just wiggle around a little bit, but they're just a straight piece of fabric with fusible web on the back. So I've got a straight strip here that I've cut, just a narrow strip, and it's got the fusible web on the back, so I'm just going to peel the paper off. It's longer than I need because I don't know exactly how long I'm going to want it to be, because I'm going to wiggle it a little bit. So I thought if I show you how I do the wiggling, that will be quite good. So I've got the poppy bit out because I'm just going to roughly position that so I know where I want my stem to end up. So I think that up there will be quite good, and I'm going to just wiggle around. So if I just start my stem somewhere there, so with my iron I'm just going to position that just on the end at the moment, just so that it's holding, and then I'm just going to wiggle that around as I iron it. You'll find that even though it's straight fabric, you can actually wiggle it quite well as you go. And keep a bit of an idea of whether you're going from side to side enough or too much. It doesn't really matter. What I've discovered with poppies in particular is that they grow pretty much all over the place. So I'm just going to trim that off down level there, and I can just finish ironing that last little bit on. So there's my stem already in place. Then we've got a couple of leaves here, so I'm going to position those as well. So I thought that would be quite nice, bearing in mind that our poppy is going to be sitting up here. We might have a leaf coming out here perhaps, and we might have another leaf coming out here. Really it's just a matter of putting them somewhere. It's not that important where they go. We're going to be having a little spider that's going to be hanging down in that space there, and a little ladybug climbing up there. So I think that's looking pretty good. I might just bring that leaf up a touch, and then so I can iron just the leaves. So I'm just doing the greenery at the moment. And it's that simple to just iron things in place. And so now I'm ready to do some free motion stitching on there. So I'll go to the machine. I've still got in the machine the same colour thread that I've used for the quilting, which is just a nice soft colour, which works really well on the green. So I'm just going to free motion applique that. So it's the same process, everything's the same, my feed teeth are down, I've got my free motion foot on. I'm just going to be stitching close to the edge on the applique. So I'll just go up the stem and round one of the leaves so you can see how I do that. So we're doing free motion here, and because I'm thinking about it and concentrating on this particular edge and curve, I'm likely to have some fairly small stitches, and that's fine. Your stitch length is governed by how fast you move the fabric with how fast the machine is going. So I'm nearly at a leaf, so I'll go straight onto that leaf, and again following that edge all the way around. And I'm coming back down to where the leaf started, but the leaf has got a little line like a vein up the centre. So I'm now going to come up and stitch that. You could mark this with a pencil if you wanted to. And then I'm going to come back down that vein. So pretty much over the top of the same stitching as near as possible. So you can just take this sort of work quite slowly. And I'm going to come back onto the stem again. And then continue on. So finish the stitching around the leaves and everything, and now I'm ready to put my poppy in place so that I can applique that. So the poppy is in more than one section, so there's different petals. So I'm going to position the 2 petals underneath first, and then make sure that I'm happy with the position before I iron anything, because once you iron, it's there to stay. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to iron those 2 down. Poppies move around a lot, sometimes they're more open, sometimes they're more closed. And then this one here I'm just going to position over the top there. I'm pretty happy with how that's sitting. And then I'm ready to applique the poppy, so that was pretty amazing. So when I'm doing the whole quilt, I would do all of the stems and stitch them, then I'd come back and I'd position and iron on all of the poppies, and then I would stitch all the poppies. And then I'd come and do some other things. In this case, I'd be putting the giraffe on after the poppies, because sometimes things are in front, the stems are behind the giraffe. So we do all the poppies, stems and everything first, and then we do the giraffe, and then we could come back and put in any little extra characters that have found their way into the poppy forest. By using a bit darker colour thread, it helps outline shapes a little bit as well. And then I'm back at the centre again, and now I can skip on to that outside one. So I can do all of that in one go. And then I just to lock it off, I just do a couple of stitches on top of each other, and then it's locked and I can trim the threads away. So I've gone ahead and I've actually ironed my spider body on, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do the little legs and the little hanging string. And then this little ladybird here, I've already ironed the little head and the body on. And then because I've chosen to just use one of these nice red colours, I'm ironing some spots on. You could of course use a spotty fabric. So just make sure you've got them up the right way so that you don't iron them to your iron. It's always a good thing to have them ironing to the fabric, not the iron. So I think they're pretty good like that, so I'm just going to iron those in place. And then for the spider, I'm hoping you can see this okay. I'll just try and lift this a little bit. So he's hanging from this leaf here. So I'm just going to bring, just with a pencil, I'm used to using a regular mechanical pencil, but so you don't want a great heavy line. Just a line down from the leaf, aiming straight for the top of the spider, but there's a little funny kink in the line there, just for fun really. and then continue back down to the spider. And then he's got these little legs, so I just mark them so that I know more or less where to sew them. You don't want a great heavy mark. So spiders have 8 legs, so he's got 3 at each side and then this sort of front leg. And so I'll go ahead to the machine now and I'll stitch around the spider so you can see what I'm doing there. It's the same as we've been doing, but I just thought if you saw it, it might just help a little bit. Hope you can see it. So I'm just coming from the little leaf, so I'll just do a couple of stitches on top of each other just to lock that off, and then just come down the string, a little wiggle, and onto the spider. Now I'm just going to come around the spider body, all around near the edge there, and then continue on round again out to these little legs, and stitch each little leg, and then come back over it again, so it's a little bit heavier than just a single line of stitching. And I've got a darkish thread in here. So this little spider is quite fun. He's a very friendly spider. I don't want you to think that he's unfriendly in any way. Spiders love to be in the garden, so I'm sure they love to be in a poppy forest. So I'm going to come back up the string as well now. Now you might want to turn the work around, and I'll just keep coming back up. Again, over that same line of stitching as near as possible so that it just makes it a little bit more definite. And there's the spider there. Just trim off that little thread where I started. I think he's looking pretty happy. So I have to say, not especially realistic as ladybirds go. However, I'm very happy with my little ladybird and my spider and my poppy. So that was really just to show you the techniques that I've used so that you could go ahead and make something like this that's up behind me, or something larger, or something quite different, but that's the technique. So it's fused raw edge applique, I've done free motion quilting, and I've done free motion stitching just close to the edge on the applique. So that was it for this. Thank you so much.